1985. By the mid-'80s, Steinbrenner's wackiness had started to get annoying to everyone, not just Yankees fans. You can look back at those old newspaper clippings for several years and just see for yourself what the Yankees fans thought of George Steinbrenner. They didn't like him very much, at least back then. It reached a new low in 1985 after Steinbrenner fired Yogi Berra after a 6-10 start, and he hired Billy Martin for a fourth time, and it turned out fired him at the end of the season. Late in that season, Martin, who allegedly got into a fist fight with one of his pitchers, Ed Whitson, allegedly there was a broken arm somewhere in that situation, but this team was just an absolute mess. During the stretch run of that season, Steinbrenner publicly blasted Dave Winfield, whom he infamously referred to as Mr. May, kind of a knock on the Mr. October, Reggie Jackson nickname. The Yankee annual drama was in just full swing. It went on all year long, and it was just a complete and utter circus. 1985 New York Yankees. Easy to hate, easy to drink the haterade. 2002 San Francisco Giants coming in at number 4 to millions of fans who didn't like him even before the Balco scandal. It was bad enough that Barry Bonds, who was featured at the beginning of this broadcast, had set the single-season home run mark just a year prior. But the team's other MVP, I'm talking about Jeff Kent, wasn't all that likable either. Not only did he get into shoving matches in the dugout, but he broke his wrist on a motorcycle in the offseason, and he lied about it, like blatantly, saying that he slipped while washing his truck or something like that. The thought of those two winning a World Series, they were 6 outs away from taking the title over the Angels in Game 6, was a very hard thing just for baseball fans in general to swallow. Now, the folks in San Francisco were just eating this up. So, I'm not really talking about them right now. I'm talking about the San Francisco Giants of 2002 and just baseball in general. It would have been a hard thing to swallow if Bonds were to, at least Bonds, particularly, would have come back and win a World Series, wiping away the stigma that he wasn't a clutch player. He did hit 8 home runs in just 45 at-bats at one point. And letting a 3-year-old manager, Dusty Baker's son, serve as a bat boy, and he almost gets run over. I know a lot of you should remember when his kid ran out to plate and almost just got clobbered. And if JT Snow didn't save the day, this team would transition from hated to just simply grossly negligent. But we're going to leave him in the hate list. 2002 San Francisco Giants, number 4 on our hate list. Now here's our top 3. Coming up in a moment, so just stick around. We're going to take a break. We're going to listen to a song. I'm going to chug some more of this haterade. Come back for the final segment, your top 3. We're going to start with the 1997 Florida Marlins. Yes, back when they were called the Florida Marlins. Miami Marlins, whatever. Biggest AAA team ever. I don't know. We'll see when we come back. iHeartRadio and the Big Game James Show. Returning in a moment.
6, 3, 4, all the way across. 4, 3, 2, main engine start. 0, and liftoff of the Stardust spacecraft, returning a time capsule with the elements of the formation of our solar system.
Ladies and gentlemen, this room is just full of hatred. Hatred is coming from my bones. This is the final segment. As a reminder, you're tuned to iHeartRadio, the Big Game James Show. This is James F. Thomas IV coming at you with all the hatred I can muster today on the Big Game James Show. And here's our final segment, our top 3 teams to hate. Our top 15 most hated teams in baseball history. It's all come down to this. The 1997 Florida Marlins, Miami Marlins, kind of like the LA Angels, California Angels, the LA Angels of Anaheim, the Anaheim whatevers. Make up your mind. They were known as the Florida Marlins back in 1997, ladies and gentlemen, and no team ever bought a championship quite like these Marlins. They stockpiled, absolutely just piled on the free agents, just threw out the money, the big contracts to talents like Bobby Bonilla, Moises Alou, Gary Sheffield, Devon White, and the list goes on and on. I mean, that's not an exhaustive list. We could go on for days about the talent that this team bought. Not only that, they had a fan base that just didn't really care. I mean, if you look back at these games and you look at the ticket sales, they were just paltry, ridiculously low. I mean, they had a hard time even selling out games in the World Series. That's just nuts. To Cubs fans, Red Sox fans, and especially fans of the Indians, the Cleveland Indians, who the Marlins beat in what was a dramatic World Series. I will say that was one of the more entertaining World Series to watch. Some people might argue that Miami just did not deserve a World Series title. Now, as everyone knows, Billy Beane came along not long after that and employed sabermetrics, kind of introduced sabermetrics into how a team fields their players. Now, Bill James, came up with all this stuff years, like in the 70s or whatever, years and years prior. I mean, this guy's been making the argument that you can judge a baseball player's ability in an objective manner. Like to Bill James, it doesn't matter what color socks or how a player wears his socks, or what a baseball player looks like in the uniform. Well, sometimes in the past, some players were fielded just because they could sell tickets or they looked good in the uniform or whatever subjective measure was used. But Billy Beane came along after these 1997 Marlins and proved that you could win when you look at baseball objectively, but not so much for the 1997 Marlins. They get our number 3 spot. Glug, glug, glug. All right. Moving on. Number 2. We got the Yankees again. Is that a big surprise to you? I don't know. But the fact that Roger Clemens hadn't been labeled a steroid user yet doesn't really matter here. I'm talking about the 2007 New York Yankees. After 24 seasons, plenty of people just didn't like him, period. Well, the fact that Andy Pettitte wouldn't admit to using until the next year. And Jason Giambi, who, big power hitter, already admitted to taking steroids. And, Alex Rodriguez hadn't quite lied to us yet. He didn't need to, really. I mean, he was already hated absolutely by fans out in Seattle. I was living in Seattle at the time, and I can tell you, anytime A-Rod stepped up to bat on television, whether I was watching the game from the Victory Lounge on East Lake or, from the Comet on Capitol Hill, it drew boos, just from passive drinkers, and people who were just sitting there not really watching the game. But anytime A-Rod came on television, people were booing him already, so we were already used to that. But who can forget about on this Yankees team that Carl Pavano, the free agent who made $10 million to make just 2 appearances. And the team also cost Joe Torre, who most people really liked. Joe Torre, the beloved player and manager. It cost him his job, so when you put all these things together, it's easy to hate the New York Yankees of 2007. And that's why they made our number 2 list. And finally, can we get a drum roll? I don't know if I have a drum roll in my stock sounds or if anyone does here. Okay, if you can hear a drum roll. This last one. Okay, I'm going to conduct myself as I should at all times, right? Because I'm a professional. Number 1, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going back to the 1994 season, and I'm declaring the 1994 season should just have hatred written all over it. Hatred, hatred, hatred. Every single team, all 28 major league teams that fielded a ball club that year, hatred. Everyone, the owners, the players, the executives, the umpires, I don't care. I mean, even the fans, everyone was to blame for the 1994 strike that forced the cancellation of the World Series for the first time in 90 years. I'm still having a hard time forgiving Major League Baseball for that year. I do remember fairly vividly that I began watching hockey as a result and how exciting it was. And how I almost just lost my interest in baseball, at least at the professional level. Only ultimately to come back, of course. That's why I'm sitting here on the radio today talking about it. But every single major league team, all 28 of them of the 1994 season, number 1 on this list, hatred, hatred, hatred. Just absolute, pure, unadulterated hatred coming from these lips right now. I hate you. Okay, I really don't. But all 28 major league teams make number 1 on the list. Somehow the labor issues of that year should have been resolved to avoid the work stoppage. It cost baseball dearly over the next few years. It's one thing, to strike and miss a few games, whatever, that's fine, or even a large portion of the season. It happened to Major League Baseball in 81, happened in the NFL in 1987. Oh, God. If we could talk about the NFL of 1987, I remember the replacement players and just how awful that was. Even as young as I was, I just remember just how awful the play was. Or even the NBA in 1998. And who can forget hockey? I mean, hockey just about blew it. But they seem to be on the rise again. But to miss the postseason altogether is just it's about as unforgivable as it gets. So all 28 major league teams from that 1994, I'm not even going to call it a season, that 1994 I'm going to hold my words here. They make number 1. Every single last one of you. Owners, players, executives, umpires, fans, myself alike. Let's just forget 1994 and hope it never, ever, ever happens again. Well, thank you for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed this list of 15 of the most hated teams in baseball history. I'm sure you have your own opinions, so please feel free to opine on Facebook at facebook.com/BGJ Show, facebook.com/BGJ Show, and feel free to leave us comments at that page as well. I try to answer everything personally. And let us have it, because I'm sure there are some varying opinions out there. So until next time, thanks for tuning in to the Big Game James Show on iHeartRadio. This is your host, James F. Thomas IV, signing off for ThinkSlinger.org. We'll see you next time.